Yo, what is up, everyone? Back here with another video. So today, we're gonna be going over my top four set from Salt Lake City Regionals. Now, this one was a bit of a wild one, so kind of excited to cover it with you guys. Like it was an intense set. It was really nuts. But yeah, no, I'm glad to be able to like cover it with you guys. I just got a shower. If you guys are wondering why I have a towel on my back. But yeah, no, going into this match, right, like, it was pretty intense. I was, like, obviously, like, I felt really good about how I was playing the entire, like, day. Felt super confident, but, obviously it still was gonna be something, you know what I mean? Like, Aaron's a good player, so I was, like, really, excited to play and also looking forward to it, but, like, I was determined, dude. Like, I was like, I'm gonna win this match, right? Like, I'm like, doesn't matter, how stuff goes, but I'm going to win. So, interesting context here that I never really got to talk about, I guess. So, I'm going to mute for this part, right? But anyways, right, so, like, for basically here, I knew that Aaron was asking around about my Grimmsnarl set, right? So, I'd actually heard that, from another person that, like, he was trying to ask people, like, what my Grimmsnarl set was, right? So, I basically knew that for the matchup, he was going to, like, kind of account for a Grimmsnarl lead. And the best way you really do that is by leading, like, Zacian and Ensign, right? So, like, it shows you the extra layer that, like, information has in, like, tournament play. Because it can really impact, like, how you approach something. You know what I mean? But, basically, I just ended up, like, because I knew that information, I kind of, like, had an idea of, like, how I wanted to approach things. So, I decided on an Ensign and Groudon lead. The main reasoning why is so that basically I could get that pressure immediately on the Zacian and Cineroar lead, right? And it was really interesting because it kind of shows you the extra dimensions that the game has to it sometimes. I think even without knowing that information, I would have led similarly, or I would have approached it the same way that I did before. But yeah, that's like kind of the earlier context for this. Obviously, me and Aaron, we're friends. We talk. We're chill. But like I really wanted to win this match, right? And I was confident. At this point, I had only lost to Chongjun, the eventual champion, right? And I had lost one game versus Adi, and that was it. I had literally only lost 3 total tournament games at this point, right? So I was pretty confident that I could, win the entire thing. So yeah, that's pretty much all the earlier context to this, I guess. The teams that they showed there, by the way, were incorrect. But yeah. So, obviously we get into leads here. What was really interesting about this matchup as well, right, that kind of, like, impacted how we approached it was basically Aaron was I'm actually gonna mute this, I think, because that makes it easier for me to talk over this, and I'm gonna put this on 1.25 so stuff moves a bit faster. But basically I knew that with this matchup, right, I could really kind of outplay as long as I outpositioned my opponent, right, or Aaron in this case. So I knew like what I was trying to accomplish here, and I knew that like I had to make sure to leave enough resources to deal with the Kartana in the back. And that was like the main thing that I was trying to accomplish here. So first I fake out, right? I know that Aaron wants to try and get the Kartana or the Kyogre in the proper position as soon as possible. So I felt pretty confident going for the Precipice Blades plus fake out, right? I burned the Shuka Berry here. The plan was to burn the Shuka Berry here, right? But I don't end up burning it. I hit the Zacian. So here, I was like, okay, well, I know that he wants to swap out the Incineroar slot, right? So I'm like, I'm going to Throat Chop it. That way I prevent it from swapping, and that way I can get in my Gastrodon in an opportune time to get a boost, because Aaron didn't have an Ice move, right? However, what I kind of failed to account for was the Kartana in the back, and basically I let my Incineroar get chipped here, which, like, in concept wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But the problem I had was now I've left myself in a really susceptible position to Kyogre. And that's not something you really want to do in this matchup. You kind of need to put yourself in a position where you're not really going to like have to deal with that. I throw trap here, which is fine, but the problem is that even though Incineroar can't swap, right, now Kyogre just comes in, I'm forced to swap anyways, and I already kind of lost momentum there, because I can't really get Zacian in immediately, you know? So at this point, I put myself at a bit of a disadvantage without realizing it yet. If I had Charizard in the back, this actually probably would have just been a win for me outright, because then I could have swapped in Groudon for Gastro, right? Dealt with that, then basically had my Charizard out, and then brought my Groudon in, and then the game was over, right? Like, that actually would have just been game over right there. But because I have my Zacian in the back here, I'm kind of, like, in a worse position for it, right? And I almost think going like into a matchup like this in the future, like Charizard would be really good into it. I kind of realized this after our set that it would be better. But anyways, I let Incineroar go down here. Incineroar was kind of expendable at that point. Even if I got in for another Intimidate, it kind of sucked. I mean, I guess theoretically it would have been better, right? But the tricky thing is like then you let Ogre have its weather, right? So either way, it wasn't so great. I had to kind of make a decision there. I think here, what would have been better for me would have been to bring in Groudon, go for a Max Flare, and go for a Yawn, because either way, I'm forcing the Kartana in a bit of an awkward position. But because the Incineroar is in the back, I'm already in like a really bad spot, right? So it's not really that great anyways. But yeah, so now Kartana is in like prime position. I basically had to make a call here. I had to call whether or not Overgrowth came out. If I called it right, and I went for Max Guard plus Sacred Sword in the Kartana, I'm actually in a really good spot. Like, it's a really, really good position. But I have to get the call right, you know? But I think Aaron swapped an Ensign here to cover. Not 100% sure. But yeah, like a Max Guard and a Sacred Sword here would have been like... I mean, I didn't even do that much anyways, I guess, because I did under half, right? But like, it would have been a better call out, because then I would have had like less holding me back from winning. Even just a regular Protect probably would have been good here. Because then I would have prevented like the Gastro from getting KO'd, but I wouldn't have burned Max yet. So I would have been able to save the Max for later. Then I could have swapped potentially, right? I could have also tried to call Instant coming in, but like it wasn't really that great. Here you see I swapped into Groudon. I did that because I wanted to change the weather from the Kyogre to keep Zacian alive, and that way I could go for a Sacred Sword into Kartana. But because Kyogre swapped out, like Aaron just made a better play here. And like at this point too, the game's pretty dire, right? Because like this is like not the situation you want to be in. I was trying to play for like the Sacred Sword endgame versus the Kartana, but like Aaron had just positioned himself really well at this point, and like I was kind of behind, right? So even though like the game's not over, it's like basically over, right? Because I have very little options to actually like deal with stuff. I'm actually gonna speed up the game a little bit more. But yeah, so I end up just being taken out here with Overgrowth, and I kind of realized that the problem is that I just let the Kyogre get in too good of a position, along with the fact that I gave up my main checks for Kartana, which put me really behind in the game, right? And that was super rough. I needed to basically be better about managing the Kartana and not letting it get in the position I wanted to. This also made me realize that Charizard was like really good into this team. I ended up, and like that's pretty much what was in my head at this point. I was like, dude, like Charizard's actually like really good into the composition Aaron has, right? Because like he doesn't really have that many great options into it, you know. So here I ended up making a call. I could have gone for a Max Guard and the Sacred Sword into Kartana here, right? Obviously, I probably would have gotten faked out, but basically, I was making the call that that Aaron was going to overread and double into the Zacian here. So I went for a bit of a risk. It would win if like I got it right, but like basically, I think what I should have gone here is like for a double Max Guard, you know. But yeah, I mean, plus double protects are possible. You know, it's not like you can't play for that, you know. So that might have been something a bit better to go for. But, you know, I ended up, at this point, losing the game, right? Because, like, I'm just down to my Zacian. Like, I could have crit Kartana, but even if I crit Kartana, like, I don't win the game. You know what I mean? Like, I just lose. So, it wasn't really worth playing out from here, because, like, I was just in a really bad position. And, like, the Kartana all it needs to do is, like, even get an Airstream on me, and, like, I just kind of lose, you know? And, like, I even Sacred Sworded Instant here just to scout how much investment it had in its defense, and because it lived, it gave me the impression that it was like a little bit invested in defense, but not like that much, right? So at this point, right, this kind of just gave me all the information I needed to know. There wasn't much more to do from here. By the way, if you guys hear like me talking a bit weird, I do have like a bit of like a sore on the side of my tongue, which makes it a little bit difficult to talk. But yeah. So game one, you know, obviously didn't go so hot. I wasn't so happy with the game one. I was thinking like, okay, well, how do I adjust from here? And like, basically the first thing I thought of was Charizard, because Charizard like is able to deal with the Kartana, it's able to deal with the Zacian, and like it covers for any other mode that Aaron can bring, right? Now, for me, I felt pretty confident into anything as long as I had Charizard. The big decision for me was not bringing Gastrodon, because I felt like with Gastrodon, it was too weak to the Kartana, and like Aaron wasn't gonna like lead anything anyways that would lose to the Gastro, you know what I mean? So I kind of like adjusted from here, and I was like, all right, you know, like I think there's no harm to going with Charizard, you know. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable way to play it. And I was thinking like pretty intensely here, but like I was really confident I could bring it back, and like I just went with my gut. I was like, my gut's telling me to bring Charizard, I'm just gonna bring Charizard, you know. So I ended up doing that, basically setting me up for like, you know, the early Airstream, Wildfire, getting a bunch of damage off. Pretty good into Kyogre stuff, you know? So then we'll skip ahead even, because it's just kind of us sitting here for a little bit. All right. Anyways, so Indeedee Kyogre is the lead here, right? And for me, I was like, all right, you know, this isn't really so bad, because I can just go for an Airstream and I can swap in Groudon, right? And like, I basically lose nothing here, you know what I mean? Because if you follow me, right, you don't do that much damage. I guess the worst that could come out here would be like a Helping Hand plus Water Spout, or like Helping Hand plus Max Geyser or Max Lightning. But even then, it requires so much of a commitment to like the Indeedee mode that like it's a little bit risky on Aaron's end, right? And you can get really punished hard for that. So I think he ends up going for like the safer play, which is just to click like Water Spout to go for some damage. It was a little bit scary, right? Because, you know, if like Max Lightning Helping Hand comes out here, I'm pretty sure it's just a loss. You know what I mean? So, although, no, I remember now. The reason why I assumed no Helping Hand is because I knew Aaron's Indeedee was Safeguard, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken. Or, like, I had something on it that, like, was basically made me feel confident in this play. But anyways, Aaron swaps out here. I go for an Airstream. This is a really devastating turn one for Aaron. You basically lost all of your Kyogre's health for, like, virtually no payoff, right? Because, like, yeah, Water Spout came out here. I mean... 2 HP on Groudon, you know, like not much damage on the Charizard, and now Charizard's able to just go for a Wildfire, and that can even pick up immediately, right? And because you have Indeedee and Whimsicott, your two are really passive, and assuming that you didn't want to lose the Gastrodon, right, you're probably going to end up bringing Kartana, you know? So I end up going into Zacian here, you know, it can take pretty much any hit pretty comfortably, then going for a Wildfire. This just puts me in a really good position to threaten a bunch of damage. You know, I just kind of KO the Whimsicott here, get rid of it. No longer going to be annoying me for the rest of the game. Obviously, too, like if Kyogre comes in, I literally just have to max guard one turn and it dies a Wildfire, right? So very little loss there. At this point, I felt like pretty good. Like, I actually kind of felt like I had the game in the bag already. Like, it's kind of like, obviously a little bit early to call that, but like, I've like just set up Wildfire. Kyogre's really low, so can't really Dynamax without dying. And then, you know, you have the Kartana in the back, or a Zacian in the back, which can just be intimidated. If it was Zacian, the game was probably already over. Because at that point, right, like the Zacian can't really do too much. It's just gonna lose the Zard. Even Kartana kind of loses the Zard anyways, so... It was pretty comfortable overall, I felt. But, yeah, Aaron's deciding what to bring in here. He decides to bring in... he decides to do, like, the fake with Kyogre. So, basically, you fake that you're going to go for the attack. Force me to double protect and then swap into Kartana. Even this isn't really a winning line for him, but it's, like, the best thing he can do. He has to, like, stall out Wildfire and try and get in a situation where, like, Kyogre can win the endgame, right? So, he brings in Kartana here. If I just Airstreamed here, I would have won. But, like, there was no reason for me to risk it, right? Like, just playing a bit safer was, like, fine. So I end up going for a, you know, protect here. It's fine. And, you know, Follow Me comes out here just to cover if I did attack, which is okay. And then, you know, Wildfire connects on the Indeedee. So literally all I have to do is just KO this Indeedee this turn, and I win the game, right? Because then it gets to Kyogre in the back, I just protect, and then Wildfire Chip comes into play. So... I felt pretty good at this point, right? Because at this point, right, the Indeedee has to follow me away from the Kartana to not take too much damage and get KO'd. And, like, I have Incineroar in the back anyways, right? So it wasn't really too much trouble regardless. And, like, there was no way to reset the Tailwind. So, you know, obviously the Kyogre is going to be slower. Even the Kartana is not really that threatening now, you know. There was more than enough options, I felt like, on my end to just deal with the rest of the team. So go for a Sacred Sword here, because if it does get redirected, it puts Indeedee in the range of Wildfire. If it doesn't get redirected, then it's a giant amount of damage in the Kartana, right? You know, like Aaron's going for Knuckle here. You kind of have to like, try and get any remote damage. I think if he had gotten a couple crits with Knuckle, it would have maybe put him in a position where he could win. But yeah, at this point, right, like, he's just fallen too far behind. Wildfire damage, now I just protect, swap out, sack Charizard, and then I get back and Intimidate, right? And then at that point, it's pretty much a win on my end, you know? So I feel like this game was, like, definitely a wash because of the turn one. Like, that turn one on Aaron was so good that, like, basically I put myself in a position where, like, I almost never lose the game unless I play really bad. So I felt, like, pretty confident about, like, the position I was in. And yeah, that was like pretty much the game too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth really discussing, but for the most part, I genuinely just felt like I was in a good spot, you know. Knuckle came into Charizard here. Probably colonization was going to protect, which is pretty obvious, right? And like maybe assuming Incineroar would stay in, but like even that is very unlikely, you know. But yeah, no. Origin Pulse comes out here, cleans up my Zard, but now I just bring in Incin, and you know I'm in a good spot again. So it like there were a lot of times in this tournament where I ended up stacking off Charizard, just to kind of get myself in the position to like get my Incineroar like with Fake Out or like get another Parting Shot or just do something else, right? So yeah. But yeah, anyways, so like Intimidate comes out here, right? And now I just win the game because I can just like Parting Shot again, and I can just go for a Sacred Sword into Cortana. I'm doing more than enough damage, just kind of win the game from here, right? So, oh, excuse me. At this point, right? Now the dilemma for me is okay, do I go with Charizard or do I not go with Charizard again? In hindsight, I should have just gone with Charizard again because Aaron didn't really have a good game plan for Charizard. But I'm like, or maybe do I go back to the original 6 because he's going to lead something that's a little bit more Kyogre heavy, or lead something that can specifically deal with Charizard, right? So I was kind of thinking that maybe he would go with something like Whimsicott and Kyogre, right? And like maybe go with something a little more aggressive like that. And then what I could do is go back to the Groudon Zacian mode with Gastrodon Incin. Oh my god. Oh, I'm yawning so much, dude. Like Gastrodon used yawn on me, bro. Anyways, yeah, at that point, right, I just kind of felt like, you know, I was in an okay-ish position, you know, and like, in hindsight, right, like, Aaron didn't really do well that game, and that was when I did lead Charizard, so there was a chance he could even go back to his old Incineroarization game plan. I probably should have just gone with Charizard, because if I led Charizard, dude, it was kind of, like, over, you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of won. And like I felt like I was kind of throwing a little bit, you know, by not. But yeah, no, definitely in hindsight, I would probably go back and bring Charizard. Like I was confident I could win with the 4 I brought anyways, but like yeah, probably bring Charizard was the play, you know. But yeah, there I am, my Stellar looking out into the crowd, wanting to win. But you know, I felt like really good about this game 3. Like I knew that too. Like game 1, like he took it off of me. I was playing a little bit sloppy. Like I was so sure that I could win this game, you know. Um, that being said, I do think that it was a bit annoying that like I did let the first game go because letting the first game go gave me the opportunity to get hacked out, you know? And that's something that like even though a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, you got really unlucky," whatever, like it is a big factor in the game. You purposely try and win as quickly as you can to mitigate that risk factor and not lose the hacks. That's why I like 2-0'd everyone basically. Like I was very sure like I want to beat people as quickly as possible and not leave that up to chance, you know? But yeah. Anyways, so now, you know, obviously, like, so funny enough, actually, some background behind, like, the team preview stuff. It's literally just us sitting there, like, maybe, like, saying a couple things to each other, like, talking to a judge, and they just get you set up, right? So, like, that's kind of, like, the main thing there. We're literally talking to the judge, even though you can't really tell. But yeah, no, it's pretty funny. Right? But yeah. Yeah, but anyway, so I was, you know, kind of thinking about like what I want to do here. I end up going with Zacian Groudon lead. The reason why I went Zacian Groudon lead, so it was a really interesting thought process. Not like bad interesting, like just like interesting. So my idea is that I could get a Blades off early and like I could always swap into Instant anyways, right? And maybe even going for Sacred Swords earlier would be better. So the reason why I wanted Zacian on the board sooner was because I was pretty confident that like I could just spam damage early and it would make it more awkward for Kartana to come in, right? Now, had I let Charizard into this, I think I would have been in a perfect position, right? If you lead Charizard like Zacian into this, you literally just Airstream and Sacred Sword into the instant slot and the game's almost over, right? Because like yeah, theoretically they could try and like bring in Cortana and then bait you or whatever, but like you more than likely have enough options. But anyway, so I go into instant here. I go for a Sacred Sword into the, you know, instant slot just to get some damage. And he ends up calling my Incineroar swap for the Groudon's slot, which is actually a really good play, right? Because it puts you in this position now where you're able to really pressure the opponent with like some good damage. Had I just Stone Edged into Incineroar here and Sacred Sworded, I would have been in like a crazy good position, right? Because then I just bring in Gastro, I can protect. I could even theoretically like do some other plays, but like, yeah, no. I probably in hindsight still would have done the same thing because it's just safer, you know. But Kyogre's still in a bit of an awkward spot here, you know. So here, what I'm thinking is like, okay, so I can do one of two things. I could just like protect, you know, my Zacian bringing Gastro here, which I think is what I end up doing because Kyogre can't really touch me, right? Oh no, actually bringing in Groudon here. Okay, that makes more sense. And then I believe I go for a double swap, right? He swaps into that. That's actually really smart. Brings in Ensign. And then I believe, do I go into Gastrodon here? I feel like I might go into Gastro. I do go into Gastro. Okay, yeah. So I go into Gastro here. The reason why is because I wanted to get it on the board sooner to deal a bit more damage. And actually, this board state for me is really strong, right? Because now I have Precipice Blade's pressure. I could theoretically, like, do a ton of damage to... I could actually probably KO Incineroar where it is right now, right? And I can threaten Earth Power. I could even Yawn if I really wanted to. Like, I had a bunch of options here that were, like, pretty good, right? But the Fake Out ends up going to Gastrodon. I just end up going for a Precipice Blades here, I believe. Behemoth goes into Groudon. Like, chipping down the Groudon so it can't max was really smart on Aaron's part. I think that was, like, one of the better plays. Yeah, I go for Stone Edge here. The reason why I went for Stone Edge is because with Stone Edge, I'm basically guaranteeing that, like, it doesn't live through the Shuka, right? So... yeah, I picked Stone Edge there just in case like there was a chance it would live with the Shuka. I didn't want to risk it, right? Kyogre comes in here. So now I'm in a position where it's basically like, all right, do I sack off my Ensign or do I, you know, play it a bit safer? So here, what I should have probably... so like I Earth Powered here because I wanted to cover for Kartana coming in for a slot. In hindsight, though, I probably should have just yawned into the Ogre here, right? Or like even like, I think I went for an Earth Power Inization even. Like, either one of those plays, like, is fine, but, like, I think Yawn into Ogre to force it to swap next turn would have been really good, right? And, like, that probably would have actually won me the game on the spot. But I decided to go for, like, immediate damage, just, like, put myself in a better position, you know? Because now, right, like, even though I'm going for an Earth Power, right, I've kind of given up my Ensign, and, like, getting the extra damage probably would have been worthwhile. It's, like, a little bit tricky, right? But, yeah, I end up Earth Powering into Zacian here. Get a bunch of damage. Almost KOs. If I KO'd there, I'm pretty sure I actually just went on the spot. But obviously, it was, like, a little bit tricky, right? So, you know. Here is where a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, you should have yawned in the Kyogre. I think, theoretically, like, yawning into Ogre would have been really good here, too, right? Because I would have been in a really good spot, you know? All I would have to do here is just click, like, Max Quake and Yawn, and like there's literally no way that my opponent can probably recover from that. Actually, Max Flare and Yawn probably would have been the better play here, right? The thing is, or what I was worried about was either Kyogre going into Kartana, which like, and at the time, like it wasn't the perfect play because like even that like has lines to beat it. Like Yawn is objectively the correct play here, you know what I mean? But I was like, you know, you're in your head, you're kind of stressed out a little bit. So was Aaron, you know. But yeah, I was thinking like Earth Power to like pressure a swap or whatever. And obviously, like I probably should have just gone for damage, right? Like here, had I yawned, the game was over. You know what I mean? Because I think what comes out here, yeah, Water Spout, I live. Quake comes out, I KO Zacian probably. Yeah, I KO Zacian. And here's where people are like, oh, if you had yawned, you would have won, right? Which is true, right? Like I definitely would have probably won if I just yawned here. But I was worried about like Kartana coming in for free, and I wanted to basically cover for that by clicking Earth Power. But again, like right, like it was definitely better to just yawn, you know. But yeah, even in this position, right, what I realized too is like I know that my Groudon is gonna live if the Kartana doesn't target into me, so I'm just gonna flare the Kartana and I'm going to Earth Power it, right? And like that was objectively the correct play because then Sacred Sword picks up and like Aaron's kind of forced to like target into my Gastro here, you know what I mean? Like you have to kind of overgrowth it to try and get the KO on it, you know? So there were definitely a couple misplays on my end as well, you know what I mean? Like I definitely think that on both of our ends there were like certain turns where we could have had better plays. Like I think to like that's the one thing as well that comes into play. Like you like obviously I got a bit unlucky in that turn, but like I probably could have put myself in a position where like I didn't have to rely on like landing play rough, you know? At least the first time. But yeah, so Airstream comes out here. I go for an Earth Power. The reason why I went for the Earth Power here is literally just because I needed to chip that Kartana into a range where Sacred Sword would actually KO it. So like yeah, that was kind of the goal there. And like I had to attack with Gastro here, by the way. You guys might be like, okay, well why didn't you like protect and try and live? with Gastro, I have to attack with Gastro here because if Aaron calls that I protect my Gastro and he double targets into my Zacian with like Steel Spike and Origin Pulse, I just lose on the spot, right? Like I can actually just lose the game right there. So it was better for me to attack in this scenario. And I knew that with Sun, like, I could probably take the hit anyways. You know what I mean? Like, I could have protected here, but, like, I don't think it was, like, correct, you know? But, yeah, that's, like, kind of what went into the thought process here. Then, I mean, the rest is curtains, right? Because, like, here, dude, I thought I won. I was like, dude, like, I'm like, I feel so good. I'm like, you know, I made a little bit of a couple errors in play there, but I'm like, overall, like, yeah, I feel like I played it pretty good. You know what I mean? And, like, at this point, I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I got this. You know what I mean? Like, crowds popping off. Got some friends there who are like, yeah, let's go Joe or whatever, right? And like I heard about chat like being like, oh yeah, well played Joe, whatever. And now I'm like sitting here, right? So I'm like all right, you know, like I'm fine. I'm pretty comfortable. Like I was still like a bit nervous because like I knew like it wasn't guaranteed, but I was like, yeah, you know, like we're fine. And first, you know, Aaron clicks protect, and I'm like, all right, you know, obviously, you know, that's correct. You know what I mean? You have to go for protect here, and then you go for a double to try and get in a position where you can crit. Or like, you know, you barely live play rough or whatever. So it's like, all right, you know, like I get it. That's valid. You know what I mean? It makes a lot of sense, you know? So then Aaron goes for another protect. I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, now this is like a little bit suspicious, right? Because like I haven't missed play rough this entire tournament, basically. Yeah, I didn't miss play rough until this point. And I literally was like, okay, dude, I'm like, literally the only way I lose is like a 90% move. And I'm like, I've literally never messed these moves when it's important. So I'm like, I'm good, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, okay, I win. It's fine. I was still nervous, right? But like, I just learned to like not worry about things I can't control and just be like, yeah, you know, I'll be fine, dude. Like, I'll land my move, right? Then the cursed moment. Origin Pulse comes out. I'm like, all right. And then with the pause, I thought that I had like landed it, right? But no, I missed it. And I'm like, oh, dude, I was so upset. Like, if you see my face here, I'm so distraught. Like, it was actually the most crushing, heartbreaking thing ever. Like, I'm glad I can cover it with you guys now and, like, look over it and talk about it, but I was so sad. Like, I was actually so, like, depressed. But yeah, no, it was actually heartbreaker, right? Because now he just clicks Water Spout and, like, gets Kernans. Like, overall, I definitely think I played well, but I think I could have done one of two things different. I could have brought Charizard, or I could have just that last couple turns like yawned the Kyogre, right? And I would have been in a bit of a better position. So, you know, kind of tricky part of the game. Sometimes that stuff happens, you know. But it's part of life, you know what I mean? Like, you can't really always control like how Pokemon stuff goes, you know. Dude, we got like such a variety amount of videos here. What the hell? Justice League, Total Drama, other stuff. Oh my god, there's so much. Anyways, but yeah, like I'd say overall, like that's pretty much like the main thing, right? Like you can't always control like how luck goes or like if stuff goes in your favor, you know, but the one thing that you can control is like, or like rather do is like look back and see what you could have done better, you know what I mean, and try and improve on that. So for me, like obviously it sucks, but like next time when I play EUIC, I'm not going to give my opponent the chance to come back in the game. I'm going to make the correct plays all the way through, and I'm going to make sure they don't do that. You know what I mean? So that's the takeaway for me. Aaron's a good player too. You know, I know he went for the out because he had to. You know what I mean? Not because he wanted to like joke me like that, but just because he knew like that was the correct play on his end. You know, everyone wants their tournament run to continue. So that's just kind of how it is. But obviously, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this video. If you guys would like to see me do more tournament VOD reviews. I felt like this was the best match to review just because it was like so, like, you know, like there was a lot of moving pieces. And it was really interesting as a whole. So make sure to let me know if you guys would like to see more videos like this, if you guys enjoyed this. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. And, you know, maybe we'll do more videos like this in the future, guys. Thanks so much for supporting the videos. If you guys would like to check out and improve your skills, make sure to check out the coaching link down below. And if you guys would like to, you know, get access to the teams I use, other teams I kind of goof off with on ladder, or Patreon team of the month, make sure to check out Patreon. But yeah, thank you guys so much for all the support. As always, greatly appreciate it. See you guys on the next video. Peace.